Dr. Emma Lane, and I'm a lecturer at Cardiff University School of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences, and I work with two other group leaders in the brain repair group. Stem cells are really important for two main reasons. Firstly, we might be able to turn stem cells, which are cells that have the potential to become anything, in any type of cell in the body. They keep dividing, and we can engineer them so that they will turn into any cell type. The benefit for Parkinson's patients is that we can turn them into cells that are dopaminergic, so we can try and restore the dopamine that patients with Parkinson's disease have lost through the disease process. So we may be able to turn cells into dopaminergic neurons and transplant them into the brain, and in fact we're getting quite close to being able to do that. The second reason stem cells are important is because we may be able to take stem cells from people who have Parkinson's disease. We can grow them and effectively have a disease in a dish, which allows us to understand more about the disease, the genetics, and the processes of how those cells die in patients with Parkinson's compared to people who don't have Parkinson's disease. There are potential problems. One of the issues is the fact that they do keep dividing. And the nature of stems in their stemness, which is what they're called, is that they keep dividing. We need to make sure that the cells that we put into the brain aren't in that state, that they are already destined to become dopaminergic neurons. We can't transplant them in their final state as we'd like them to do in the brain because they're too vulnerable, they die in the process. So we have to make sure that they're already set down a particular pathway, and we choose the right point in the pathway to transplant them. If we're too soon, we might have cells that don't become dopaminergic neurons and may divide out of control. There are lots of stop gaps and there are lots of checks that we can do in the lab to make sure that that process won't even get close to the clinic, but that is one of the risks, and one of the reasons it's taken time to get to the point that we're at. The second thing is that we need to make sure they are on that path to becoming dopaminergic neurons and they don't become something else. And again, that is something that has taken time in the lab, and that is something we can make sure happens way before we get into the clinic. TransEuro is a clinical trial that is starting very, very shortly. In fact, patients have already been recruited for the trial, and they will be looking at using fetal cells transplanted into the brain to treat Parkinson's disease. What that's allowing us to do is prove the principle that stem cell transplantation will be a therapy. Primary cells, which are cells that develop in the fetus, that are going predestined already to become dopaminergic cells, are the best kind of things to transplant. But that is very complex to do. It's logistically difficult, but we are putting lots of effort into doing that clinical trial so that we can prove for future stem cell trials the best and safest way to go about doing those stem cell trials. So it's kind of a gateway trial really to allowing stem cell therapies to take off. But it's a clinical trial with fetal cell transplants in patients with Parkinson's disease to try and see if we can reduce their dopamine agonist or L-dopa medication and give them better function back as a result.